Meet the hero of Gunsmoke. The top hand of TV's adult westerns is tall Jim Arness, alias Marshal Matt Dillon. By Liza Wilson. Hollywood Editor, June 1958. "Look, Arness," said one of the officials of the rodeo featured at the Ohio State Fair in Columbus last year, "why don't you walk along the fence and shake hands with the people after you do your act? There's 15,000 of them, all crazy to meet Marshal Matt Dillon." "Sure thing," said Jim Arness, hero of the popular Gunsmoke television series. "But won't it hold up the show?" 6 feet 6 inches tall, handsome, with blue eyes and brown curly hair, Jim Arness did his act. He demonstrated some fast draws, a few gun tricks, and talked about Gunsmoke. Then he good-naturedly walked along the wire fence, shaking all the outstretched hands. Suddenly he heard the tinkling of little bells, a pleasant enough sound, ordinarily. But Jim's blood froze. That tinkle meant a huge Brahma Bull was out of the chute. Handshaking tour or not, the bulldozing contest had started. Somebody had goofed. The 3,000-pound monster careened around the field, jumping, kicking, bucking, trying to unseat the professional cowboy on his back. Jim looked longingly at the fence, but Marshal Matt Dillon, the bravest man in Dodge City territory, couldn't show panic, wasn't afraid of man or beast. Jim started edging his way across the field toward the gate. 100 feet away, the maddened bull pawed the ground and gave Jim the evil eye. Its rider had been tossed and chased. Saliva dripped from its mouth. Who was this tall intruder? Suddenly the Brahma charged. Marshal Matt Dillon's bravery went out the window, and Jim made an undignified dash for the nearest fence. As eager hands pulled him to safety, he felt the sharp horns of the infuriated beast on the seat of his pants. This came within a bull's breath of being the end of Jim Arness. In the old Hopalong Cassidy days, this ignoble exit from a rodeo would have caused Jim Arness to lose face and a flock of fans. But in these days of the adult Western, the hero is recognized as a human being, as susceptible to human failings as the villain. Jim Arness almost lost his life, but nary a fan, and he has plenty of them to lose. As the Marshal of Dodge City territory, Jim is the most popular of the TV cowboys. Gunsmoke, one of the first of the adult westerns, got off to a good start way back in September 1955 with a rating of 32.6. CBS hopefully put the show up against NBC's Wonder Boy, George Gobel, whose ratings had been soaring into the stratosphere. "We thought we were sunk before we even got started," says Jim. "It wasn't easy to do, but we broke his back in one season." In July of 1956, Gunsmoke hit the top 10 and has been there ever since. It became the #1 show on television according to all the rating systems in June 1957 and has stayed in that enviable spot ever since. Genial, easygoing Jim Arness, who is greatly responsible for the show's success, was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota in May 1923. His name was Arness, but it brought on confusion, so he dropped the U when he became an actor. He inherited his height from his Norwegian grandmother, who was over 6 feet. In grade school and high school, Jim took part in dramatics and sang in the church choir on Sundays. But the minute school closed each June, he hid out for the north woods of Minnesota for lazy, happy months of fishing, hunting, and sailing. In 1942, he entered Beloit College in Wisconsin, was promptly drafted, and sent to Europe with the 3rd Infantry Division. Badly wounded on the Anzio beachhead, he spent a year in the hospital and was discharged in 1945. He returned to Minneapolis for a go at radio announcing. One night he went to the theater to see Tallulah Bankhead. I don't even remember the name of the play. It wasn't a good play, just sort of a pleasant tour de force. But Tallulah was fabulous and stimulating. The excitement was contagious. I decided then and there to try my luck at acting in Hollywood. If I couldn't find a job, at least I could swim in the Pacific and soak up some sunshine. The initial break in Hollywood came easy. After a couple of small parts with a little theater group, he was signed by RKO to play one of Loretta Young's tall brothers in The Farmer's Daughter at $400 a week. "I had it made, I thought," he recalls. Jim was a restless fellow in those days. With his bundle from the picture, he roamed the Pacific coastline from Santa Barbara to the tip of Mexico. 9 months later, he was back in Hollywood, flat broke. "I couldn't land another job in Hollywood for a whole year and a half." He worked at all sorts of jobs: laborer in a construction gang, carpenter, advertising salesman, with sporadic appearances with little theater groups. In a Pasadena Playhouse production of Candida, he met Virginia Chapman. They were married, and Jim kissed his roaming days goodbye forever. MGM signed him for Battleground and put him under contract, but after a few small parts, he and the studio called it quits. "The male stars didn't want me in their pictures," says Jim sadly. And you could hardly blame them. There was a rash of 5 feet 5 inch stars at that time, and they didn't want Jim towering over them. But another tall man, John Wayne, put him under contract. Jim played a series of rugged roles with Wayne's company until May 1955 and did several films on loan out. The character of Marshal Matt Dillon was conceived by CBS in the summer of 1955. It was a part that called for a man whose physical stature alone commanded respect. "The part was first offered to John Wayne," says Jim. "He turned it down and suggested me. They tested me and some 20 other tall guys. I never heard a word from them. So I took another picture and went to the Bahamas on location. That did it. The minute I was out of reach, they wanted me. It's the surest way in this business to get a job." After he was signed, Jim learned the fast draw and other gun tricks from a professional. He already knew how to ride. Jim works on Gunsmoke like a Trojan 9 months of the year, often flying out on Friday nights to appear at rodeos and state and county fairs all over the country. He shakes hands until his arm almost falls off. He figures he flew 30,000 miles in 1957. But 3 months out of the year, he can do whatever he wants to do. "And what I want to do is be with my family. If I ever find myself losing contact with my wife and kids, I'll give up acting. It's doing things together that's important. We go on hikes in the mountains, camping out overnight, and picnics at the beach. We spend long weekends at ranches, but most of all, I believe, they like to go to sea with me on my boat." Jim's great love, second only to his family, is his 22-foot outboard cruiser which sleeps 4. The Arnesses have 3 children: Craig, 11, Jenny Lee, 8, and Rolf, 6, all who think he's the bravest man alive in spite of the Brahma Bull. They live in a rambling old California ranch house in Pacific Palisades, a good stone's throw from the ocean. There's a huge spreading oak tree in the backyard in which Jim has built 3 tree houses, the favorite hangout of the neighborhood kids. Mrs. Arness gave up acting temporarily to have babies. But now she is planning to return to the theater with Jim's hearty consent. If their plans work out to co-star in a revival of Robert Sherwood's Road to Rome, it'll be their first play together since Candida. Jim is a quietly ingratiating fellow. Like Marshal Matt Dillon, he indulges in few mock heroics and has the adult Western faculty for tolerance and understanding. Arriving home recently after a 12-hour day at the studio, a day filled with gunshots, he stuck his key in the lock and felt a gun in his back. "Stick 'em up," someone ordered. This is it, Jim thought, and did just that. It called for all the tolerance and understanding he possessed when the shock wore off, and he realized it was just a bunch of the neighborhood kids playing Gunsmoke with the marshal.